Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Quiñones and I'm a flute player based in Cornwall, England. Now I'm here in my flute studio and in a minute we're going to be interviewing Zara Lawler, who is in her studio in New York City. Now I chose to interview Zara because of her very intriguing career where she combines dance and flute playing to create amazing performances with movement at the core of her expression. Now, I came across Zara through Twitter, through her amazing handle that had me intrigued called A Flute on Its Feet. And over the last year and a half or so, I've gotten to know her work and have been able to correspond with her to learn more about what she does. So one of the things that's fascinating is Zara's work very much ties in with the work I like to do with my students, which uses being mindful of what we're doing with our bodies to create a better experience for ourselves as players. So that might mean using our body as a way to ease tension in our hands or to create a better tone, to create better resonance, to help our articulation, all kinds of ways. And I think it's really important. It's a really important aspect of our playing to get out of the head and into our body in a very mindful way so that the music we offered is very much an organic experience from our very being. So what we express is literally ourselves. So in the next 40 minutes with Zara, we talk about all kinds of things such as fitting into a career where there is no niche carved, creating your own path, what it's like for her to have to create places for her work when, like I said, there hasn't been that space before, but also what it's like combining dance and flute playing and how that even works. So I hope you enjoy the next 40 minutes. It's been such a pleasure interviewing with her.
Hi, Zara. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. So, Zara, tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, where you've come from, and how you've come to what you're doing now.
Well, my background is primarily as a flutist, but now I like to think of myself as a flutist and interdisciplinary performance artist, for lack of a better title. I combine flute music with theater, dance. When I'm feeling exalted, I use the words theater and dance, and when I'm feeling not exalted, I use the words movement and text. And I love, what I really love doing is exploring the connections between different forms of performance. I love finding what is the similar thread in movement and in music, what makes words flow together and music flow together, and how to sort of combine that all together in my own performance. I just love connections across disciplines. So that's what I explore, and that's what I love, how I love performing the most.
How did you get here, though? I mean, because you're a classically trained flute player didn't you go to Juilliard?
Yes, yeah. You might have heard of it.
Just a little school. Yes, I mean, okay, Julliard-trained flute player. Now you're dancing with your flute.
Right.
Tell me about this.
I have always been interested in the ways things connect, in the way different studies and ideas inform each other. I mean, I remember in high school, in my calculus class, feeling like somehow calculus was making me a better flute player. And I can't really say exactly how, although the study of accelerando and deceleration was probably worthwhile. And I just love finding ideas in different places that are connected and similar. And I've always loved dance, and I've always loved spectacle. I loved when I was in school, whenever we would do an opera or a ballet performance, and just feel like I was part of something bigger. Feel like the music was telling a story. And I actually, one of the first ways I got into this, I had a cousin who was studying dance, and I was like, I want to work with dance. Can we do something together? And she said, well, sure, but I'm going to ask you to move also. And I was like, what? And interestingly, that collaboration never came to fruition, but I'm, sort of after that phone call with my cousin, I started trying out moving and playing, and I was just like, ooh, this feels good.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because to me, it would be very natural for, say, a child that's learning flute to move when they play, adding that childlike creativity and movement, that's something that's so innate that almost gets stamped out later on in life. And I was actually wondering if you were a child, when you were a child, if you did that intuitively and naturally, and it, like you said, it just felt really good, and you just kept that enthusiasm going.
Right.
Whereas sometimes, as you know, if you go to music school, don't move too much when you play. You don't want to draw attention to your body because it's all about the aural sounds.
Right.
So tell me about this.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you should say that about, actually my childhood music education was very much informed by that spirit of it's all part of the same fabric. I went to an elementary school where the music teacher was an Orff teacher. And the Orff schoolwork method of teaching kids music is all about using their whole bodies, using their experience in the world. So we were constantly writing music based on, things we saw in the world, experiences that we had as kids. And we were always dancing and acting as part of the show. We had 3rd and 4th grade recorder club where we would show and perform it, and everybody was playing the recorder, everyone was acting, and everyone was dancing. So once I became, a grown-up professional, my elementary school music teacher actually sent me back a letter that I had written to her at the end of 4th grade that said, and when I am a grown-up, I will sing and dance and put on shows with my friends. So it was so funny because I had really certainly had forgotten writing that letter. And so it was really a neat indication that this way of combining multiple things at once has really been part of my whole experience with music, even from a very young age.
It was imprinted in your DNA to do it, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
From the very beginning.
Right. And, and then going on, in music school, I was really lucky to study with Carol Winsence. She's an amazing flute player. She's an amazing teacher. And she also has a lot of dance training. She, at the time I was studying with her, was doing a lot of folk dancing. I was doing a lot of folk dancing. She was she never was one of those teachers who would stamp it out of you.
Right.
Even though I didn't have too many opportunities to do really interdisciplinary work in school, it was always encouraged, and my interests beyond the flute were always encouraged.
That's fascinating because you had that support system almost in place with your Orff teacher, and the fact that you were wanting to do these collaborations with you said it was your family members, and then you had Carol Winsence. It's almost like that whole support system was always there to help you with this, because I can imagine that someone looking into what you do, without that, it would feel really hard to combine the amazing movements that you do with the flute playing at such a high level, because you are a professional dancer as well as a professional flute player. Those are two huge professions on their own, and then to combine them is something really special.
Yeah, well, it's funny I have never even really put it all together like that, like you just did, but it almost feels like, oh, it was fate, the way you just laid it out. But I do think it's interesting to also know that there is, that feeling of being an outsider. When I really was getting serious about wanting to do this kind of collaboration, I had no idea where to start. So I just literally posted a piece of paper in a dance studio that said, musician available for your projects.
I love that openness, that complete willingness just to let whatever's going to happen. That's huge. That takes courage.
Yeah, and and I think that's something to keep in mind, when you are charting your own path, is that everyone feels like an outsider at some point, right? Before you are a good enough flute player, you feel like an outsider in the flute world, and before you are a good enough dancer, you feel like you're an outsider in the dance world, and even maybe when you're a good enough flute player or a good enough dancer, you still feel like an outsider, depending on the
Absolutely.
day. So I think the thing is, I mean, if there is hopefully some inspiration there, it's, if you have an idea, just try something or reach out and see if you can find someone who can help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in our training, we need to learn how to be able to do everything well, or at least that's our goal. Our goal is to be able to play orchestral music, to be able to change from the loudest, most strong sound we can make to the teensy tiniest, most precious sound we can make in an instant. Our goal is to optimize all of our skills so that no matter what anyone asks us, we can do it on demand.
Yeah.
But the actual truth of performing in the classical music world and in the wacky experimental world is that you almost never have to do everything on command. If you're playing Brahms 4, you know what's coming next. You know when you have to play with your tiny sound, and you know when you have to play with your big sound. And the same goes for if you're creating a new way of performing. You can create the new way of performing so that it shows off what you do best. When I work with a choreographer, if we have an idea that I can't do, that doesn't make it into the show.
Yeah. Yes, got it.
And I think that's something to keep in mind, that we do need to go through that training to get all of our skills up to the highest level we can achieve. But then when it comes to the actual real world of our careers, of our performance, of our teaching, of what it is that we are contributing to the world, we contribute what we do best, not absolutely everything all the time.
Exactly. So, for example, clients I work with that say like, oh, you know what? I really don't like auditioning for orchestral roles, but yet I still keep doing it.
Right.
That's a perfect example. Well, if you don't like it, you really don't feel you're good at it, there is absolutely no pressure to keep doing that work. There's other ways to make the career.
Exactly. And, there's a language that a lot of teachers use. I remember certainly used in my presence a lot as a student. Well, not everyone can be a soloist.
Right.
And I always thought that meant like there was maybe some like roster in the sky about who can be a soloist and who can't.
A little tick list.
And it's like not only is there not some predetermined list about who gets to do what, but there's also no need, not everybody even wants to be a soloist.
Absolutely.
Some people really want to play in orchestra. Some people love playing second flute. If you love playing second flute, you don't have to aspire to play first flute. And if you love teaching, that is as much a contribution to art, and to the world as performing is. And there's no reason that you have to do both. If you love more than one thing, I don't think that you have to choose. I think you can find ways to either do them side by side or, in tandem the way I do. Yeah. And that's not to say that it's always easy. And certainly I think one of the challenges of doing something that's really unusual is, there isn't a model.
Actually, do you know what would be really nice? I would absolutely love it if you could demonstrate what you do, and then we can talk about it a little bit more, because I think it'll help to put what you do into a visual
Okay,
sense. So tell us what you're going to do for us.
I've been working on a set of etudes based on Andersen etudes that combine music, text, and movement.
Okay.
I actually thought I could start with one that is sort of more simple than the others in that it is text first and then movement.
Great.
And each etude, the text is a sort of inspirational quote from someone. And this first one is from Martha Graham. And Martha Graham said, "I believe we learn by practice. Whether it means to learn to dance by practicing dancing or to learn to live by practicing living, the principles are the same. In each, it is the performance of a dedicated, precise set of acts from which come the sense of one's being, the shape of achievement, and the satisfaction of spirit."
That's very beautiful.
Yeah. And so, And Martha Graham was in her dance, she was always exploring contraction and release. And when you are moving and playing the flute, upper body contraction is one of the most challenging things to do because it can really impact directly our sound and our physical relationship to the instrument. So this etude, which is Andersen's Opus 33, number 6, for those of you following music at home,
Yeah.
explores those movements inspired by Martha Graham.
Right. So one of the things that absolutely pulls me into your performance is I think that your movements add so much depth to the music.
Thank you.
So how do you come up with the movements that you want to do? Is it intuitive? Do you change every time that you perform? Or is it like a set routine that you know exactly what you're going to do? So walk us through.
Yeah, so the short answer is it's a set routine. I find, and if you want to experiment with this yourself, it is actually quite hard to improvise movement while playing music that is set.
Right.
It's just like, that is like just one level of multitasking that's to do it well and to sort of consistently feel like you're expressing something. I mean, you can do it for a few bars, and actually doing it for a few bars is how I come up with the choreography. I do it for a few bars, I do something that at least feels good, and then I usually videotape it when I'm working on something that's solo and see if I think it looks good. And then kind of codify it. And it does evolve over time, but I do try and set the choreography.
Right.
And the same basic plan goes when I'm working with another choreographer. I've done a lot of work with Neil Parsons, who choreographed the Barrio and some of the duo pieces that you've seen probably the videos of. At least when we were working on the Barrio, we would often work on a series of movements, and then we would get something that he liked, and then we'd videotape it and see if I liked it.
Right.
And see if there were other things that I might want to change once I had a chance to actually see it. And the etudes that I'm working on are ones that I am hoping will be teachable in some way.
So is this...
would be something that I could share with other flutists.
I was going to say.
That they could learn, and it could be an entryway into this kind of performance.
I was going to ask, because do you know the work of Will Offerman's?
Yeah, a little bit.
I was going to say, would it be something similar to that, where you give in a set routine to the flute player, like a movement chart, and then the movements, so that's what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually thinking that I might do it more as maybe make a teaching video to go with the etudes. Another one that I wanted to show you that's also from the Andersen. That one is more of, it's almost just like a set of poses in a certain order, which I think in some ways might be a less intimidating way for people to start, instead of trying to feel like I'm dancing, it would be like, I'm doing this pose, and I'm doing this pose, and I'm doing this pose, and the dancing is just the in-between those poses.
I see, so it's play, move, play. So not moving while playing.
Well, it is moving while playing, but it's very restricted, and the idea
Right.
is, and I actually sort of choreographed it, so hopefully it could be practiced in your living room.
Got it.
You know, wouldn't need a dance studio for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the fifth etude from Andersen's Opus number 33, with text from the Sufi poet Rumi, and movement, speaking, singing, all combined. Birdsong brings relief to my longing. I am just as ecstatic as they are, but with nothing to say. Please, universal soul, practice some song. Or something through me. Please, universal soul, practice some song through me. Etc.
So Zara, I would love to know, what is your career involved now with this work? Where are you performing? Who are your audiences? Tell me what's going on.
Yeah. In the big picture, this is one aspect of the way I make my living and my career as an artist. So I have done a lot of performing in sort of the flute world. Last week I was at the Mid-Atlantic Flute Fair. I'm starting to ease my way into the dance world a little bit. I'm performing the 3 etudes that I've choreographed on a choreographer's showcase next week, which is one of the first times I've been in a dance context rather than a flute or music context. And I am working on that's sort of the perennial question. I'm still working on finding the ideal places. I've done a lot of self-produced performances here in New York.
Right.
And hoping to take it to a bigger audience as I go forward. Particularly, I've been working on this choreography of the Barrio Sequenza, which I feel like in and of itself, it should be seen on any new music series. And I think it will be the kernel of a larger performance,
Right.
which I'm hoping to develop over the next few years and bring to more dance and theater type venues, I think, because it's starting to feel to me like music venues are not necessarily the right outlet for me. I also, just to give you a sort of the other picture, is I have a duo with a marimba player.
That's
and
right.
We do a combination of performances. We do some performances that are interdisciplinary. We're developing a theatrical concert right now. We do traditional recitals, and we do a lot of performing for children and family audiences. And then the other part of my career is teaching. I have a teaching studio. I teach at Manhattan School of Music pre-college program. And then just to sort of also give, I think this might be really interesting for your audience to know, is there's this other aspect of kind of running my career as if I'm an arts organization. So I do fundraising. I have some incredible supporters, regular donors and friends who support the creation of the work and support the work that I do. So sometimes I'm able to, so for example, to finance self-producing a show.
Absolutely.
To hire composers to write pieces for us, to pay my choreographer, to rent studio space to be able to work in New York. I need to do fundraising in order to do all of that.
Absolutely.
And there's a program here in the States where you can have fiscal sponsorship. So I don't have to be a nonprofit. There's a larger organization called The Field here in New York that sponsors me, which allows me to pursue donations that are tax deductible.
Right.
And then that becomes my budget, my arts budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what I really love about what you're saying is that you're not waiting for the work to come to you. You're creating your spaces, you're creating your audiences, you're creating your place for your art. And I think there's so many times many musicians complain there's no place to perform, they don't know how to get gigs. Mm-hmm. But what I love is you're making it for yourself. You're carving your own path. The path isn't there, so you're with your machete in the form of your flute, and you're carving it. And I find that fascinating, and I find that really admirable.
Thank you. I mean, I will say, in the context of an interview, it sounds like, oh yeah, and so all I do is I just put on my own show. It is sometimes a huge drag.
Of course it is. Just like anything, any career will have the ups and the downs. It's like anything.
Right. Exactly.
So, okay. So, Zara, I need to know more about how somebody can get into this, I don't want to say field, into this playing, dancing, using the body in a very organic way, which is how I think you come into it. Tell me more about how people can learn more.
Well, ultimately, the etudes that I am choreographing, I hope to have teaching videos and some materials available for people to learn them from me, either directly or indirectly. And I also would encourage anyone who doesn't want to wait for that. Some of the skills you can try out yourself would be walking to the beat while you play, walking off the beat while you play, and then experiment with moving your upper body while you play.
Right.
Those are just things that you can just try out on your own and see if you find something that you like, that looks cool, that you want to do.
So how about if somebody wants to learn it in a group setting?
Yeah. So if you are part of a flute choir or you have a group of friends, I do have 2 pieces that I've choreographed for groups. They're part of my bigger piece called E Pluribus Flutum, and there are teaching videos online that literally tell you every step. You can download the music from my website, and I can send you the links to that.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I'll put them with this blog post. Yeah.
But they're designed to be done by people who have no experience doing this. They are fun performance pieces. They are fun to work on. One is based on an English country dance, and the other is a round, and the movement happens in canon, so it's very, it makes a lot of sense, and it's easy to learn and fun to perform, even by young students.
I love that. I love that you're trying to make this part of, to enter into a bigger picture. It's not just for you, it's for anyone.
Right. We should all have this much fun.
And I was going to ask, do you give Skype lessons? So if someone wants to work with you individually, can somebody work with you on Skype or?
Yep. I can do Skype depending on what we're doing. We'd be in a different location, and we can do FaceTime and
fantastic.
Of course, I'm here in New York, and when people come to New York, I'm probably here.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So I would love to hear a little bit of that barrio.
Okay. Great. I just want to say that the choreography for this has been done by Neil Parsons, who is a long collaborator of mine. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Wow. So Zara, one of the things that struck me when I was watching you is the amount, you really have to know your music.
Yeah.
Okay, not only are you memorizing it, but you really have to know it because you're coming
Yeah.
at so much more than just reading off a page. So
Hmm.
what is that process like?
Yeah. For the Barrio, it's been interesting because we choreographed it before I knew the music.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so we worked a lot with a recording,
Hmm.
Sophie Cherrier's recording of it, and so it was really interesting when I was memorizing the music to already know what the moves were going to be.
Yeah.
Um, in a way that wasn't really it's not helpful information at that stage in the
Okay.
game. But then it does come to a point, though, once you start combining them, where, at first doing the moves makes you forget the music, and then playing the music makes you forget the moves.
I
But
see.
eventually it gets to this point where it's so ingrained that actually doing the moves helps you remember the music.
Okay, that's what I was coming to because I
Yeah.
was going to say that physical reminder of where you are could be very powerful,
Yeah, and it's
that it's
really,
ingrained.
yeah, and it's so funny in the rehearsal process because when I'm sort of bringing, if I'm bringing a piece back, for example,
You
and
have to,
the moves a little bit not quite right, I will find that I can't play the music. But then if I, if I'm like, oh yeah, I have to move my right foot first, and then I get my right foot doing the right thing, then suddenly the notes just come back.
right. Wow, that's a really amazing connection between the
Yeah,
physicality of our playing.
yeah, yeah.
So much deeper. Yeah, it's like it's literally in your cells, that music. Okay, Sarah, so one of the things that I really have a sense of when you're playing is that the music and your physicality are so intertwined that it's almost hard to disconnect them.
Hmm.
Maybe, maybe not. But okay, so you played the opening. Do you want to, just for time's sake, play the last closing section for us, or?
Yeah, yeah. I'll play the very end, and just so you know, sort of what has happened in the interim after tracing the frame there. At the end, I emerge from the frame slowly. The frame eventually moves. We go sort of all over the stage together and apart, and then here at the end, I kind of come back to the frame.
Fantastic.
Is it okay if I just start?
Go for it. Wow. All I can say is that your stamina is incredible because I can imagine that doing such movements would improve so much your concept of breath and support and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you're using your whole body, somehow your sound just kind of gets bigger without thinking about your sound.
Yeah.
And the other thing is you just have to just so focus on the airstream, kind of regardless of what's happening. That really is an incredible benefit of this work is that just the management of the airstream
Wow.
becomes, yeah.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Zara, as we're winding our time down together, just want to know if you had any last closing remarks about your art, about anything that you want to share with us that we didn't cover.
I guess there are sort of two thoughts that I have. One is particularly to the people who are listening who are artists themselves, who are flutists, flute students, people in their careers. I'm saying I love creating the impression that I'm a professional dancer and that I really know so much about dance. But you know, I feel like I'm still a beginner as a dancer, and the point of that is to say that you don't have to be as trained in your field of interest as you are in your field of profession of the flute in order to really make a meaningful addition into your flute playing by bringing something else in. So don't let that stand in your way. If you feel like you want to try something but you don't have enough training, just try it anyway. See what happens. And you can always get training if you need
Absolutely.
it. And the other thing, I'm so excited about doing this work, about combining the different art forms and not just having them happen side by side, but truly integrated. And I think I think this is becoming a thing. I think it's becoming a part of 21st century performance practice. And it's something that I'm really excited about, and I just hope other people become excited about. I do have colleagues who are doing similar interesting experimentation of this sort, and I really hope it emerges as a field, as a way of performing, as the forefront of what the 21st century performer does.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think it's the seed. It's a seed of something big to come, because I see more and more of it happening. It's becoming more, I don't want to say, I guess acceptable, maybe.
Right.
I hate that, I hate that word, acceptable. No. But it's becoming more, I don't even want to say commonplace, but people are getting used to the idea in their own art. I'm thinking about people even like Bhavani, who takes her dubstep and creates pop music with her flute.
Right,
has a huge following, and that's a major part of who she is as a performer. So, and then of course, Hillary from the Fourth Wall, right?
Yeah.
Your colleague as well. So, I'm excited about where it's going to go.
Yeah, and there are groups like the Fourth Wall. There's a cool group here in New York called Nouveau Classical. Nouveau Classical Project.
Okay.
And they combine fashion with music performance. There's a great pianist here in town named Unbi Kim who does this beautiful performance with an actor, all inspired by the music that's in the novels of Murakami.
Wow.
And it's really an incredibly beautifully integrated music and literature and drama experience. It's quite amazing. So that, these things are really, it's not just, wackos working by ourselves.
Right.
So, join the party.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been fantastic seeing you again. It's been fantastic to hear you play, to watch your beautiful movements. I mean, super amazing stuff. So,
well, thanks so much for asking me. I'm so glad we finally,
made it happen.
Were able to make it happen after a while.
Fantastic. All right, Zara. Well, thank you so much, and I'm sure I will see you at the next flute convention at some point.
Yeah. Great.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.